Our next guest is no stranger to being on the front line, but now Ross Kemp is spending time with a very different kind of army.
Yeah, he's been meeting the everyday heroes coming together to help in the fight against COVID-19 in Ross Kemp and Britain's volunteer army. So that's a gin distillery making hand sanitiser. Ross joins us now. Hi, mate. It's lovely to talk to you.
Hello.
Thank you for joining. And so that's a prime example of what we've been witnessing and what you've really put under the microscope is how Britain can mobilise itself.
Yeah, absolutely, Phil. I mean, look, we're not maybe the biggest country in the world, but we've got a massive heart, and I think that's really been on display since COVID-19 arrived. And there was, a real need for us to come together, and we've answered that call. 10 million volunteers, we believe, have all done something, whether it's making PPE, to just going and checking on a neighbour that they've never ever said hello to before and making sure they're okay. One of my favourites is Hannah and Sophie. They're two girls. Their mum explained to them that people in old care people's homes were not necessarily being able to go out. They were in lockdown. A lot of them may have lost their permanent partners some time ago. And they decided to write letters to them and little jokes like, why did the sand get wet? Because the seaweed. And you can't put a price on how much that will mean to someone who's feeling lonely and vulnerable. So there was all types of different types of volunteers, whether it was making us a PPE or just checking on people, taking dogs for a walk, getting prescriptions.
And sometimes, for you, this has been an emotional experience. Tell us about Ryan.
Ryan?
Yeah. So Ryan was the chap who he was helping the hospital.
Yes, he's a guy. Yeah, so there was a thing that they were feeding nurses, Nourish Our Nurses. Ryan's dad sadly passed away due to COVID-19 in a local hospital down in Egham, and he raised a heck of a lot of money. But I think talking to me really brought back the pain of losing his dad, and that was, I ended up having a little tear. But that's just one example of so many people who sadly suffered during this crisis. But there's also been some positives. 2/3 of people believe they now know their neighbours better than they did before this happened, and I think we have to look for the victories in this right now. It's not a time to be pointing fingers. It's a time for us to come together. We're not through this. A quarter of all businesses are on hold still, and they're going to need our support as well. So, yes, it's been very emotional, and Ryan is a fantastic man, and he's dealing with his loss. But there's also some real positives to come out of this. There's a village not far from me called Downley, where everybody in the street now knows each other, and they, by their own admittance, they only basically said hello to the person next to them before this crisis came along. So there are positives out there, and I think Britain's volunteer army really concentrates mainly on that.
Well, you are constantly on the front line, seeing quite often the worst of humanity, so it must be quite nice for you to see the best of what we can be.
It really was, Phil, and it was joyous in places, and it was so good. I am the worst sewer on the planet. I tried to make some PPE masks with the guys that were making scrubs, and I'm definitely not my forte. But it was great to just get involved, get your hands dirty, and there's also a joy in actually helping someone else. And I think a lot of us have discovered that during this time. It does make you feel good. And it brings you together. And what's really impressed me is that it's gone across classes and across religious beliefs, etc. People have come together to help others, and that's been quite moving as well on the emotional side of things. But the other thing is people have had fun, at a social distance, of course, and they've helped other people. And you can't, as I say, you can't put a price on that.
So that's tonight, so we can watch that tonight. Something else you're working on, that you have been working at the moment as well, is the documentary that you've been doing. Just tell us a little bit about that, because I know that's not out for a while yet.
It's actually coming out next week. It's another series of Living With, and we'll be looking at dementia, opioid addiction and displacement around the country. And
I know that you're talking to Scott as well, Barbara Windsor's husband, the partner, Scott Mitchell. So because you're good mates, aren't you?
Yeah, I just spoke to him just now. Actually, look, that was the catalyst really for making the documentary about dementia, and it covers everything. From a Penny who's 5 years old to Jerry who's 50 to Barbara who's a lot older, and it looks at it still, despite what we're going through now, it will still remain the biggest killer in the UK, and it's set to probably double in the next 20 years, and it's something that needs to be looked at seriously and addressed by governments.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Lovely to see you. All
Very
episodes.
serious end that was, wasn't it? Sorry.
Say again?
No. But an important message, nonetheless.
No, I mean, it's a really important message, and the more that's talked about, the better it is for everyone. But back to what we were talking about at the beginning, all episodes of Ross Kemp's Britain's Volunteer Army are on BBC iPlayer, and Series 1, this is a compilation episode of all the sort of very emotional bits, and that's tonight at 8:05 on BBC One. Thank you, Ross.
Thank you.
Guys, see you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.